Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Review pre-match show. It is Rangers against St Mirren. It's Boxing Day. It's a 5:45 kickoff. What's not to love? Chris Jack is live in Paisley. We'll get to you in a second, Chris, but we'll read out the team first, which people will be able to see in front of them as well. Jack Butland in goals for Rangers. He comes back in. James Tavernier, Dujon Sterling, Leon Balogun and Chefty make up the back four. Mohamed Diamandi and Conor Baron in midfield. No Nico Raskin. We'll come to that. Nadim Barami at number 10. Yanis Hadji keeps his place on the left. Hamza Igaman keeps his place up top. And Václav Černý as well on the right. So we'll come to you first and foremost, Chris. I mean, I guess the biggest surprise is the fact that there's no Nico Raskin, but we think that's to do with the number of yellow cards that he has picked up, especially with this look ahead to the Old Firm in a couple of games' time.
I know it's very much a one game at a time situation for Rangers right now, but the manager does have to almost plot his way through this good run of games. It's a big one here this afternoon. There's even a big one that Rangers have to win. Then bouncing into Motherwell, into the Old Firm game, or into Hibs, and the manager has to really plot his way through those fixtures. So we do believe that as a suspension, not issue with Raskin, but just Rangers taking that out the equation ahead of the Old Firm game. But I think it's a good opportunity for Conor Baron to play in that role. It's not been I don't think he's been overly poor in the last few weeks, but perhaps not been at the standard that he was at the start of the season. So I think it feels like a good afternoon for him to come back in. The rest of the side, a couple of changes from the other day, obviously not quite the side that we both picked. I think we both had a bit of rotation at left back with Ridvan coming in, but you can't really argue with Chefty in terms of his form. So certainly it's a Rangers side on paper that's more than good enough to go and get a job done here this evening.
Yeah, a few comments we'll get to right away. Chris Maka says, afternoon, I'd have liked to see Danilo start, but that looks like a decent starting 11. Jamie says he's happy with either Raskin or Baron. I don't like them both in the same side, and nothing will convince me of having both in the same side. The Rangers bench reads Kelly, Ridvan, Proper, Cortez, Dessers, Dowell, Raskin, McCausland, and Danilo. Let's talk about Baron then, Chris, because Nico Raskin, I think, has been Rangers' best player for probably the last couple of months, certainly their most consistent. And ever since he moved into that number 6 role, I think it was a home win over St Johnstone way back before an international break, might have been at the end of October. He kind of hasn't looked back. And Conor Baron, who started the season in that position, hasn't really been able to cement a place in the team since. I think Rangers look better as a team with Nico Raskin at number 6. I think Raskin is a better number 6 than Baron. But I think Baron probably has looked better as a 6 than an 8, maybe over the last couple of weeks. But with that said, he did have a good couple of performances. I'm thinking of Olympiacos away, even Motherwell at Hampden in the League Cup semi-final. But a bit of an opportunity for him today because despite the fact that it's been Raskin in that position so consistently, Rangers are still kind of light in that midfield area. And I guess a bit of an opportunity for Conor Baron today to try and put his name in the hat for some more minutes going forward.
I don't, just to pick up on Jamie's point, I don't think it's a case of you can never have Baron and Raskin in the same midfield. I think that there was a spell where the two of them looked good together. I think Rangers have looked better when it has been Raskin. As you say, he's been, I think, Rangers' best player over the last few weeks. He's really made that role his own. He spoke about that a couple of weeks ago in terms of some of the changes, sort of lifestyle and food-wise that he's made, and we're really seeing the benefit of that in terms of Nico Raskin. And it says a lot about his form of late that he's now a guy that you're talking about when he's not in the side. It's seen as a big blow. A couple of months ago, that just wouldn't have been the case. As I think back to maybe even the previous trip here to St Mirren when Raskin played, didn't make the most of his chance on that occasion, and it was a long time before he was entrusted again to go and get the other opportunities. So it shows how far he has come. He's now seen as a big miss. On the flip side of that, you also talking about Conor Baron. I don't think he's been terrible in the last few weeks. He's perhaps been overshone by Raskin, but he's been overshone by a guy who has outshone almost everyone in recent weeks. Certainly, if you're looking at individual performances, Igaman comes to mind for his some of his European exploits. There has been other really good individual performances for Rangers over recent weeks. In terms of that consistency, it's a week you have to feel slightly sorry for Conor Baron, because he's now trying to get the team ahead of someone who has just been a model of consistency over recent weeks. I don't think you can say it's too much of a negative on Baron, that he's perhaps not had the same opportunities, or not had the same bit of care level of game time over recent weeks. It's a difficult position to try and get into the Rangers side right now, because the man ahead of him has played very well. I think Rangers do look better. There's a better balance in the midfield when it's Diomande that's in the other role. You've got Barami, you've then got Hadji, you've then got Tierney ahead of them. That gives Rangers a good solid foundation as a two, and you then back that more forward four to go and win the game. That has happened more often than not of late, thankfully. A big, obviously, as we touched on the top of the show, a really, really important afternoon for Rangers, and that front four will have to go and do the business again.
Yeah, comment here saying back to the formation that hasn't really worked. I think it's a continuation of what Rangers have been doing, but where I do agree with that comment is that you've not got Danilo and Hamza Gaman in those two positions. Now, I'd imagine there's going to be a little bit of looking towards the next game from Clement, because he's got Motherwell in 3 days' time, and then the Old Firm game a couple of days after that. But where I think that comment does make sense is that what's worked well, I think, with Igaman and Danilo is Igaman naturally drifts to the left. I think that the raw elements to his game normally come out sometimes in his decision making in the final third. Or I think Danilo's someone who's more experienced and he knows how to occupy the box at crosses, and we've seen him score a good couple of goals as a result. The goal in the cup final, I think, is a really good example. So just on that, Chris, because a comment here from Blue Nose Bob 1872. Great name, says Bayrami has been poor, hope he picks up. We've not seen Nadim Bayrami much in that number 10 position. I thought he had a good enough game in the cup final. Spurs' decision making wasn't great, but what he's not had, and this probably Nico Raskin's probably a good example of this. You need to give a player a run in his favoured position before you judge him. I think it's fair to say, and we've seen Bayrami play a lot from the left-hand side, where I don't think he's at his most comfortable, because he's a little bit one-dimensional and that he never wants to hit the byline, which by contrast, Hadji has that left foot, doesn't he? But I guess this is a big run of fixtures for him, because Rangers have brought him in to be a big player. They've brought him in for that position, and he's playing there now. We know he's got this good relationship, this good dynamic on the pitch with Hamza Gaman, and this is the type of games, this is the run of fixtures in which I guess he needs to start to show that consistency that perhaps he's not been able to so far. But do you take my point that Raskin probably shows that we do need to give players a few games in their favoured position before we rush to make judgment?
I think consistency is a word with Bayrami. We've seen moments where he looks great on the ball. He's been really influential. It's can he turn those moments into matches almost? He goes through phases in games where he drifts out, doesn't have much of an impact, but then you know that he can have that level of impact. I know the comment there said it's been poor. I don't know if poor is the right word overall to describe him. I think he came in and he was fresh. He was different when he first came into the club. Made a real impact then. Perhaps he went off the boil a wee bit, but a lot of that was due to having to play off that left hand side. Issues within the squad. He basically had to do a role he was not overly accustomed to. I think, as you outlined there, now playing in that number 10 position, there is a bit of pressure on him. There's a lot at stake for Rangers over these games, and you're looking at big players that have had big fees spent on them to really step up in those moments. So you would imagine Bayrami sees as a real opportunity, not just tonight, but a performance tonight takes him nicely into Motherwell, takes him nicely into the Old Firm game, which I don't think on form he's a certain to start. You think about the Danilo coming back in, obviously Hadji, Agaman, Barami's maybe one. Looking at, I know it's one game at a time and all that, but if you have to pick an Old Firm side right now, would Bayrami definitely be in it? I don't think so. So these two games give him a real opportunity to give him that platform to get himself in that side for the Ibrox game.
Friend of the show, Graham Hall, says, Chris, can you get a bit of WD-40 on that door? It's not your door, Chris, but there's some feedback for you. I think Bayrami, what he did well in the Old Firm game was he did. I thought he competed well with Callum McGregor, and Rangers kind of just sat him. They allowed one of the centre halves to have the ball, and he does have pace. I think that Cherney and Hadji don't. He's maybe not a really quick ball carrier, or he's not someone that you notice that necessarily out wide, but I thought especially for his goal in the cup final, he ran away from players, and that we've not seen many Rangers players run away from defenders in well, the last year or so. Let's get to the rest of the team, Chris. It's the back four that has one change, Liam Balogun coming in for Robin Proper. No surprise to see Balogun come back in, but a little bit of a surprise to see Dujon Sterling continue there. Not because of any, not because I don't think he should, but I thought you might see Proper and Balogun continue in there with Sterling maybe kept for Motherwell. Perhaps, though, you're going to see Balogun and Proper play at Motherwell and Sterling and Balogun play at home to Celtic. But Clement's just going to have to manage that centre-back position for the meanwhile, isn't he? And he's got Sterling who can plug all these gaps everywhere. I thought he did well enough at home to Dundee the other day. And Liam Balogun, it was always I guess, suspected that he'd come in for this game away from home. We know that St Mirren will pose a threat in the air, and Balogun's definitely Rangers' best defender in the air, isn't he?
You mentioned the manager having to manage those situations. I think centre half is almost the main area that he has to do that. You also had the story last week regarding Rangers looking to move in the market at centre half. Something myself and Derek spoke about on the show. I think that's the obvious position that Rangers do need to strengthen. Losing John Souttar when they did was a huge blow because he'd been the first choice in that area, been really, really impressive over the course of the season so far, had been the first name that you would pick at centre half. So to lose Souttar, it was a real blow for Rangers. They just have to try and get through until one, John is back, and two, the transfer window opens. Which of those things comes first, we're not quite sure yet. I think the transfer window will probably open before we see John Souttar back on the pitch. But it's a case of finding ways to win games right now. And again, Dujon Sterling's flexibility and his ability to play in different areas, to do a job in different areas, shows it's invaluable to have guys like that within a squad. I think he's played, correct me if I'm wrong, your memory for these things is better than mine, but I think Rangers' last game here, he started wide left or wide right.
What game was that? The game where it was 2-1 and Dessers scored late?
Dessers scored late on. I'm sure Sterling played further up the pitch that day.
I think he might have started wide left and then ended wide right, because if memory serves me, he was involved in the lead up to that goal. It was a Tavernier cross, wasn't it? It's too many games. It's in Scottish football, you play the same team too many times. But yeah, to your point, I think it's a continued discussion about Sterling that it's I think a credit to him as a footballer that he can do all these different roles. Is he going to be an attacking winger or the last line of defence? The ongoing question for Rangers, though, is are you going to maximise his development and therefore his value by not playing him in his favoured position? But that's not a discussion for a pre-match show. We'll just finish off with this point from Alan, who says maybe Bayrami will play in the left and Hadji will take the number 10 position. I think they'll switch positions throughout the match to pull Saints all over the pitch. Definitely seen that from Hadji in the number 10. There should be a bit of fluidity in that front four. That is your Rangers team that lines up to take on St Mirren. We'll be live after the game, myself and Stevie Clifford, roundabout on the whistle while Chris is at press conference duty. Remember, stay up to date with us across all of our channels. If you're not subscribed to the Rangers Review, please do like and subscribe to support us and the work we do. Until then, enjoy the game wherever you're watching it. We'll speak to you sometime after full time, and goodbye.